Want to become the ultimate melee pyroblasting machine? I'm going to show you how with this video guide, so let's dive right in. Hey everyone, Shikari Dill here. I just wanted to start with a quick channel update. Thank you so much to everyone who supported my channel. As of recording this, I'm already up to 30 subs, so thank you. I want to keep doing Ascension content and build guides, but I'm currently running out of my own builds to show you all. It takes a lot of time to level up a new build and get the resources to set it up properly. So I had a cool idea. I think it'd be really cool to showcase the community's builds on my channel. If you have a fun, cool, or unique build you'd like to showcase, then let's team up to create a video guide. Check the description below on how I'm going to coordinate that, because I'm still trying to figure that part out. Otherwise, my channel might shift into more of a MMO, general news and gameplay type channel. So I've already created a fire melee build on my channel before. In fact, it was my first video, but it wasn't very fleshed out or in depth. Well, I completely re-leveled my melee fire spec with more tools and spells than ever, and I wanted to create an in-depth guide on how it works. So let's get started. So like with most melee builds, you're going to keep rolling at level 1 until you get charge. This is really important for PvP and can be very useful in PvE. Other spells I would keep rolling for until you get at level 1 are Life Tap and Demon Skin, and I'll explain why you want Demon Skin when we get to the Enchant section. For skill cards, you'll want to grab the harder to get spells like Storm Strike and Wind Fury Weapon. I don't have Storm Strike on my build yet, but I really would advise getting either Wind Fury Weapon or Flame Tongue Weapon. I got pretty lucky this build and actually got both Flame Tongue and Wind Fury Weapon, so I like to use Wind Fury Weapon on my main hand and Flame Tongue Weapon on my offhand, but either one is really good. I would also use a skill card to get Living Bomb as well, as that's a pretty big damage boost as well. Your main abilities that you'll want to grab while you're leveling are Fire Blast, Pyro Blast, Fireball, Whirlwind, Lava Lash, Flame Shock, and any of the AoE fire abilities. These can be spells like Flame Strike or Hellfire. Some good legendary options I would go for are Sprint, Killing Spree, and Feral Spirit. Killing Spree is pretty good because it does a decent amount of damage, not a ton, but what you really want to use it for is it can be used as a small gap closer and it can instantly give you 5 stacks of Maelstrom upon using. So this build does use a lot of mana, so on top of grabbing Life Tap, I would also grab Innervate or Seal of Wisdom. The more tools you pick up to help with your mana issues with this build will affect what legendary enchant you end up using. So you can actually do this build with agility as your main stat and go for mail gear, but I actually like to build it as kind of a warrior type battle mage, so I like to go for plate gear with strength, and your talents are going to change depending on whether you go agi or strength based. So generally for talents, you're going to be putting most of your points into the fire mage tree. And generally for this build, you want to get as much spell crit as possible so you can get your hot streak stacks. So you'll want to put some points into the conviction talent, which can be found in the ret tree, and the raise talent, which can be found in the elemental tree. These talents alone will significantly increase your spell crit, allowing us to get those pyroblasts off. The rest of the talents will be dumped into the enhancement tree so we can grab the mental quickness talent and the maelstrom weapon effect, which are both vitally important for this build to work. If you don't have any shaman imbuements, then you can put those elemental weapon points somewhere else that you see fit. So for legendary enchants, you have a few options. Now my build, I didn't get Seal of Wisdom, which means I run into mana issues a lot with this build. So I opted to take Eldritch Knight, which basically restores mana when I deal damage with abilities or auto attacks. If you're not running into any mana issues in PvE or PvP, then I would definitely go with the Molten Earth legendary enchant. That'll add a nice AoE component to your Lava Lash, and it'll also give you extra spell damage scaling with your abilities. If you're having difficulty with inconsistent hot streak stacks, or you're sitting below 40 to 45% spell crit, I would recommend taking Flame On as a third option. This enchant can be a little bit tricky to work with as you'll have to control both the Flame On and hot streak stacks, but the Flame On stacks basically allow you to control when you want your hot streak to pop, so it'll smooth out the consistency of your pyroblasts and hot streak stacks. So there are quite a few epic enchants that are pretty decent that you can take for this build, but I'm going to show you the ones that I take. I like to use Fire, Fire, Fireball, Demonic Mind, and Consuming Flames. So a really big chunk of our damage with this build actually comes from the Ignite talent in the Fire Mage tree. Consuming Flames shaves off just a tiny bit of our fire crit damage for a huge buff to our Ignite damage. That damage trade-off from our fire crit is well worth that 15% extra damage on our Ignite. So the reason why I said you should take Demon Armor earlier is because of the enchant Demonic Mind. This is just a straight up 5% spell crit buff, with the only drawback being is your self-healing is reduced by 10%. That 5% spell crit is a really big deal for this build, especially when you're so dependent on your fire spell crit. Fire, Fire, Fireball is just a really fun enchant, and I think it just works really well for this build. So basically how it works is after throwing 2 fireballs at your target, which will usually be instant for us, the third fireball will just shoot like a massive wave of fireballs at your target, and it's a lot of fun, does a good amount of damage, and it can instantly trigger our hot streak, so you can immediately follow it up with an instant Pyro Blast for nice damage. Those are just the epic enchants I take, but there are alternatives that you can do with this build. For example, if you do a lot of PvE and high level M+ content, you can do Boomer, which adds another AoE component to your build. Or if you also happen to have a high melee crit chance, then Flamekeeper might also be a decent choice as well. For the rest of your non-epic enchants, just generally grab the ones that increase your fire spell crit. The really important ones I went for are Critical Mass ×3, Incineration ×3, and Flame Forged Weapons ×3. So that's a whole lot of info on how to sort of build the class, but let's get into how you actually play it and what the general rotation is going to look like when it all comes together. So PvP and PvE, your rotation is going to generally look like this. Apply your Living Bomb and Flame Shock. Make sure to reapply them when necessary. Use your melee abilities on cooldown to generate Maelstrom stacks as quickly as possible. This can be anything from Whirlwind to Lava Lash to Storm Strike. When you get 5 stacks of Maelstrom weapon, dump it into an instant Fireball. Immediately follow that up with a Fire Blast. And whenever you get Hot Streak, use Pyro Blast. For AoE situations, don't forget to use Living Bomb, as that'll explode and deal nice AoE damage, and don't forget to use your other AoE tools that you picked up along the way. And that about covers everything for this build. This build is just so much fun. There's just something so satisfying about getting those instant Pyroblasts and those instant Fireballs off, all while being a melee. I would go as far as to say this is probably just my favorite melee spec that I've messed around with on Ascension. Probably with the Beast Cleave build being a close second. If you haven't checked that out, go check that video out. That's also a really fun build. Thank you so much for watching this video. I put a lot of time and effort into this one. I'm really in depth, so I would really appreciate it if you hit that like and sub button. I look forward to hopefully making more Ascension video content, whether it's with my own builds or with some of your guys' builds. So, thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video.